D. Mace Finken and Donic 1025, 1063 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service, and we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, David Janes here with you, Chase McCabe. These 8 minutes, I want them added to my PTO, boss man. So just kidding, of course. Great to hear from JC Latham at the conclusion of the first day of practice at Titans training camp. Derek was out at Titans training camp. We will get his takeaways in just a matter of moments, but we start the show today on a somber note. As many of you probably have heard, Willie's wife, Erin, died yesterday after a battle with cancer. She was 54, which absolutely heartbreaking, devastating news. And I did not know Erin as well as Derek, who will say a few words in just a moment. But Erin had such a vivacious personality. It had a way of making complete strangers feel like family. And even as she fought cancer, Erin remained as bubbly as ever. I remember her telling me at one point, Derek, that she would have fit right in on our show because she too had no hair. And
that's Erin.
That is Erin. And Willie found solace in being here with us during this difficult time and talking about sports with all of you. And we hope to have him back soon. But on behalf of the entire 1025 The Game family, we send our deepest condolences to Willie, his children, Evie and Mahoney, as well as Erin's family and her countless friends. And we love you, Willie. We're here for you. Derek, I want you to take a moment to say some words about Erin, who you knew for a long time.
Yeah, it's when Willie told us, it was hard, for me, because I've gotten to know Erin over the years. I first met her at a friend of mine, Christy Smith, who has done a lot of work with stars. She asked me to come to the fundraiser, and once I got there, I met Erin there, and it was, she finds this sort of fun and sort of weird way of, it's almost like she makes you do things and you don't even know you're gonna do it. Like, she always wanted everyone to get involved with stars and help out with stars. And maybe even if you thought, well, I couldn't, I don't have enough time. After talking with Erin, you had enough time, and you were going to immerse yourself in stars and what they were about in the charity events. And she was just a beautiful soul. Uh, I don't think I ever saw her not smiling or not saying something positive. She would always say my whole name, Derek Mason, just like she would say, Will Donic. And the last day, the last time I saw her was in a hospital, and she, and I caught her on a good day. And Willie explained to me that day, but I caught her on a good day. And we were just sitting there, and I stayed for about an hour or so before she had to go get some work done. But we were just sitting there, and her and I were talking, gave her a big hug, and we were talking, and something was going on, and we were all talking, and Willie was sort of trying to interject, and she said, "Well," and Willie stopped. Willie stopped in mid sentence, and you saw him just like, okay, let me stop, let me back up. Even though she's in the bed, she still can get me. So it's just it's stuff like that. And what I noticed is it was almost like she kept saying, she kept, saying she loves her kids. She was telling her Mahoney how handsome he was, and her and Evie were kidding around with one another. And she was sitting on the bed with Evie, and I'm just watching all of this, you know, in it, but it was almost like I was just watching it from a 20,000 feet view, and I'm sitting right there. And it just it reminded me so much of my mother because she went through the same thing, and I couldn't help but just feel for Willie and the kids. Um, I know it's hard on everyone. I know it's extremely hard on Willie and Mahoney and Heavy. Um, it's it's not fair. I don't think it's fair. But um, God has His plans, and um, she did exactly what she was supposed to do, and in the time she was given, and that part you can't take back. So my prayers and thoughts go out to Willie and his family. Um, it, there's going to be a lot of days where he's going to be okay, but then I know there's days that they're going to really miss her, and the kids are going to miss their mom. And again, that's not fair. That's not fair either, but uh, it's just hard, man. And I know everybody that met her and had time to spend with her felt feels just like I felt or I feel. So again, you know, Willie knows he could take all the time he needs. Um, but we're gonna miss her because even though she wasn't on the show, she was a part of the show because we talked about Aaron and Willie all the time, their interactions and stuff like that. So she wasn't on our show, but she was still a part of, what we do here at Cumulus and 1025. I mean, Cromwell, excuse me, and 1025 the game. Um, so again, my prayers goes out to Willie, Evie and Mahoney and Aaron's family, and also Willie's family too, because she touched us just, and she didn't spend much time with us as much as she spent with, her family. So I just couldn't imagine, you know, the influence that she had over everyone in that family. So again, it's just tough. It's tough. So um, we're gonna miss you. The Cromwell family will miss you. Um, and and this city is always going to have a place for Erin because I mean she didn't play sports, she wasn't a politician, but she meant just as much to the city as they did. So
Well said, Derek. And if you knew Aaron or and have any memories that you want to share, please do at 615-737-1025. We would love to hear them. I also recommend reading Brad Schmidt's obituary for Aaron at the Tennessean. Brad Schmidt, a former colleague of mine at the Tennessean, I knew that he would do an excellent job, and he did. We will share it on our 1025 The Game account on X as well if you would like to read it. We are going to take a break and reset, and then we will get back to sports. We will discuss Titans training camp. Derek was out there today. We will get his takeaways from the first day of Titans training camp. Coming up next, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063 The Game. Tune into ESPN 94.9 The Fan today as the Nashville Sounds take on Charlotte at First Horizon Park. Pre-game begins at 6:20. First pitch is at 6:35. Coverage is also available on the Game Nashville app and at thegamenashville.com. Sounds Baseball on ESPN 94.9 The Fan is presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Mourning the loss of Willie's wife, Erin, who lost her fight with cancer yesterday. We'll take your thoughts on Erin, your well wishes for Willie, any memories of Erin all show long on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHundy.com, 615-737-1025. Let's go to Nate on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHundy.com. Nate has a message for Willie. Nate, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey guys, I was shocked to hear that this morning on Joe and Robbie's show. And even though Willie and I cheer for different teams and have extremely different opinions at times, probably the most on each side you could be, I just want to tell Willie, if you're listening, man, I'm sorry. And this is a time where sports can bring us together. This is what it's all about, where we help each other through hard times. And I'll be praying for your friends and your family, Willie. Hope you can get through it, man.
Thank you, Nate, for those kind words. And as I said before, Willie found solace being here. He liked coming here. He liked being with us. He liked talking sports with all of you. As his family dealt with Erin's illness, it brought him comfort. It took his mind off of things for 3 hours a day. So we hope to have Willie back soon. And if you have any memories of Erin that you want to share, we will get to them throughout the show at 615-737-1025. Derek, you were out at the first day of practice at Titans training camp. We are waiting on pins and needles for Derek Mason's takeaways from day one of Titans training camp. So you were out there in the sweltering heat.
Mm-hmm.
What did you see? What did you like? Let us know.
See, I don't want to make this. I'm gonna say I'm gonna preface it by saying this. I don't want to make what I'm going to say a big deal. And maybe it was just because, whatever the circle, maybe they were tapering it down and getting themselves acclimated to the weather, as we heard Tim say about his team yesterday. So I guess the NFL guys do it as well. I ain't never get acclimated to no damn weather. They just threw us out there and said, let's practice for 2 hours. But that's neither here nor there, and that's yesteryears. But when I was out there, one, I think you're going to start to see when you go out there, you're going to start to see that Brian Callahan is going to be periodically in different places. I forgot who I asked that. I asked Jim, and then TD and I were talking about it. Jim White and TD and I think it was Jim White, or may have been Terry McCormick. We were talking about, just watch, because I asked where Callahan was, and it was he may be on the other field. So I think what he's trying to do now in his second year is trying to sort of immerse himself in all areas of the football team and not just solely on the offense. I think he's has enough confidence that the guys that he hired can get the job done while practice is going on. He doesn't need to be there every minute of offensive practice, especially when you're in individuals and throwing on the air. So you're going to see, I think, Brian Callahan float around, and typically that happens with the second-year coach. Again, he wants to try to immerse himself in all of the positions he possibly can, just to learn more and see what they're doing. The second thing, see, this is where I don't want it to get like, oh, here we go. I don't want anybody to get hyperbolic about it. Practice just seemed blah.
Well, let me interject for one moment, because just as you said that, Paul Kaharski tweeted this. Cam Ward summed up the Titans' opening practice of minicamp, and I quote, mid.
And that's just the way it felt.
So Cam Ward said it himself. So don't feel like you're being hyperbolic,
so
Derek.
It was blah. And I'm sitting there and I'm talking to TD. And I'm like, man, there's just no energy out here. Like, I understand you're not in pads. I get that. but there should be some energy. Like, it's the first day of camp. You asked me yesterday, how was it the first day of walking in that building? And I told you the first day walking on that field was even better. Like, your adrenaline is going. You're ready to go, pads or no pads. Why? Because it's the first day. The crowd is out there. Everybody is as healthy as they gonna possibly be. This is the healthiest majority of these guys are gonna be at this point in this season right now. The energy just wasn't there. I don't know if they need to change the music or whatnot, but there was no energy. And here's another thing. There were too many balls on the ground for my liking. And I'm talking about on air. I'm not even talking about, because Cam, he did well in just 7-on-7s and in team. I thought he did okay. Wasn't nothing, great, or he's the next Joe Montana, but it wasn't, bad either. He was okay. But I just thought that there was no energy. There was no sense of urgency. In individuals, the ball routes on air, balls on the ground too many times. You can't start the first day of practice. Like, if I'm a veteran guy, I'm like, hold up, let's stop all this. Let's stop. Coach, let's rewind this thing. Let's start this thing over. Because there was no energy. And again, maybe they thought it was energy out there. But if you're looking on the sideline, it was like, man, like, you would have thought they were in day 12 and it was 95 degrees outside the way they were moving around. And I get it. You gotta get acclimated to the weather, but they're grown men. You should be acclimated. You have been working out outside. If you have not been working out outside, getting yourself acclimated to the weather, then shame on you. As a head coach, I shouldn't, but I understand the league. I understand the medical and behind that. So I think because of that, it just made the practice seem less.
Who does that fall on? The coaches, the veteran players, someone else? Who's responsible? Who's most responsible?
Everybody.
Okay.
Everybody, the head coach, the leaders of the team. Everybody's involved in this. So everybody's to blame. But obviously, it starts at the top. It starts with Brian Callahan.
And we have a texter on our text line. How much do you attribute that lack of energy to the head coach?
Yeah, because he's trying to reshape this culture. Because whatever they did last year was wrong, completely wrong. So he said he's calling himself reshaping this. He's adding different things for try to create some type of competition within the team. He's trying to create this competitive advantage for them once they get in the season. So he's trying to start now. So y'all did all that stuff, and then you come out the first day of practice and it's again. I know y'all didn't have pads. I get it. That can be an excuse. I know that you're getting yourself acclimated to the weather. I understand that part, but there comes a point where you step on that. I never stepped out on the field on the first day, practice pads or not, where there just wasn't energy in the house. Like, the defense talking to the offense. I don't care if we were in shells. Defense talking to the offense. Everybody's riled up. 1-on-1, 7-on-7s. I don't think they had 1-on-1s today. They didn't. But 7-on-7s, I didn't understand it. And if you're talking about changing the culture and changing the mentality, today wasn't one of those days that at least from my vantage point, that I saw a different team than what they were last year.
And you were not alone in that assessment. Teron Davenport said in his post-practice notes basically the same thing that you said. Not enough juice. Too many dropped balls for routes on air. Wes in Clarksville says, I have a feeling this is going to be another depressing football season. Well, Wes, at least Chad Brinker and Mike Borgonzi yesterday let you know, without saying it explicitly, that yes, this is going to be another depressing football season for the local professional football team. So, Derek, I know a lot of people are going to want to ask you about Cam Ward. Again, no pads. He's throwing on air. So there's only so much you can take away. But in terms of how he was throwing the ball, his poise, I was going to say his energy, but it didn't really seem like a lot of people had enough energy based on what you saw. What was your evaluation on the first day of practice for Cam Ward?
I think Cam did good. I think it was typical. He had some good passes. It wasn't anything like great, like ooh. But he ran the offense or whatever they asked him to run today. He ran it efficiently. I'm sure they'll go back over the film and look at some things that he probably missed in the passing game, or some blitzes that he probably didn't identify. But for the most part, he was okay. He had one over the middle to Calvin Ridley. I thought had he waited just a tad, like a tick later, he would have got Calvin Ridley in a good spot, but he threw a high and out far to Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley dove to try to get it, couldn't get it. But you can't, a pass like that in the middle of the field, it has to be on the money. It was open. He had a window to throw it in. He tried to zip it in there, but it's got away from him. So he read it right and he saw it. But he just delivered it a little bit too. And listen, those things are going to happen. So I'm not going to make a big deal about that. That happened to veteran guys. So I'm not going to make a big deal about that. He had another where, you can kind of see him sort of going through the process and, he threw an incomplete pass, but then he looked up and he kind of pointed to the right, which there was a receiver to the right. So he's telling himself, okay, I got to get back to this backside again, which that's what I said. I said, man, he could have came back to the backside, but he didn't get it. But that's just a rookie. He's learning, he's still in his learning phase. He's developing. So stuff like that, I expect to get better as he continues. If he doesn't, then maybe he's not ready to take that next step. But those are things that happen, and I'm not going to make a huge deal out of it. But hopefully tomorrow's practice is a little bit better as far as energy wise. It needs to be a lot better this afternoon when they practice. I think they practice this afternoon. But then again, it may be in shells again, so I don't know. But the next time they come out on the field, I think there needs to be more energy from this team than there was this morning.
Robert on our text line says, first day of practice is usually the most intense. People are glad to be back at it for the most part, and to hear it was meh is very concerning. Now, I'm not going to read too much into it. I trust Derek's opinion, of course. Cam Ward said it himself. Today's practice was, in his words, one word, mid. And that's not what you want to hear from the worst team in the NFL on the first day of training camp. But hopefully they can improve from there. I do want to read something, Derek, to you, and I want your opinion on it. Deontay Lee over at The Ringer had a story looking at the 6 NFL storylines to follow as training camps began. And Deontay Lee took time to write about Cam Ward. And there were some interesting things in here, and I want your opinion. This is after Will Levis announced he was undergoing season-ending shoulder surgery. Deontay Lee writes, quote, "It now seems likely that Ward will have to be given leeway to make mistakes and learn on the fly. When I reviewed Ward's film ahead of the draft, I left thinking that I was watching a slim Ben Roethlisberger with around 85% of Jordan Love's raw arm talent. In layman's terms, Ward is a quarterback who will take some risks to push the ball downfield, even if it comes at the cost of sacks and turnovers. Head coach Brian Callahan needs a quarterback who's able to straddle that line between ruthless and reckless. So over the next few weeks, I expect to hear that Ward has had some bad days with multiple turnovers, teaching him when to tamp things down. The bigger thing for us to keep an eye on, though, is how the offensive line is holding up. Bringing in veterans like Dan Moore and Kevin Zeitler should shore things up, but this unit projects to play poorly in pass protection. So if Ward takes sacks or has to escape pressure too often, it may be a signal that this offense can't give him enough time to be the best version of himself. Do you have any disagreements with what was written there?
Listen, that's the fine line between every quarterback.
Ruthless and reckless.
Exactly. It's, when do I need to push it and when do I need to sort of play it safe? That's every quarterback. And as you get years up under your belts, the great ones figure it out. The really good ones figure it out as well. You know when you can do that, and you know when you can't. As a rookie, it's going to take some time, and you may get away with some things. because of your strong arm. But stuff like that, it takes time, and it takes time, and you just hope that Brian Callahan and his coaching staff understands that, you know, first we need to work the quick game to get the ball out, get him used to getting the ball out of his hands very quickly. And then we gotta graduate into the sort of mid level, and then the deep ball. But we can only get to the deep ball if the offensive line is doing their job. I'm not going to consistently put him in a position where he's taking 5-step drops or play action passes, and the offensive line is defensive line is beating down his chest. That's what messed up prior quarterbacks in this Tennessee Titans offense. That's what got prior quarterbacks hurt. This is your number one pick. You can't do that. So if the offensive line shows you they can't block a play action, then you're not calling as many of those. You're trying to get the ball out of your hand as quickly as possible. I saw some of that today where he was getting the ball out of his hands very quickly. So that's what it's going to be up to the head coach to bring it slowly along. So because I think if you go if you go to 0 to 100, you're asking for problems. Now you're telling him he can do all this stuff, and then once he does it wrong, now you want to back it down. No, you want to make sure you're methodically moving it forward at a pace where if he does make a mistake, he learned from it and he knows not to make it again, or he sees that defense again, and he's not playing from top to bottom, he's playing from bottom to top.
615-737-1025. You've heard Derek's takeaways from the first practice of Titans training camp. Your thoughts on Derek's thoughts. 615-737-1025. Also, if you have questions for Derek about something he saw at training camp, you can let us know as well. This week's Nashville's Best Deal is Eastside Bowl in Madison, in my neck of the woods. Eastside Bowl is a vintage bowling alley, music venue, lounge, and arcade designed by locals for locals. Get 2 hours of bowl plus shoe rentals for up to 6 people for just $45 while supplies last. Go to thegamenashville.com/deals to get yours now. Last two. Go ahead.
With the Titans defense last year, you guys were at or near the bottom in every pass rush metric and everything, not enough sacks. You guys just lost Lorenzo Carter. Why are you guys so comfortable with this pass rushing room? What have you guys seen from these pass rushers that make you think you're going to increase all those stats?
Well, when you get comfortable at any position, you get yourself in trouble. So I think there's a sense of urgency for every position group to improve. Listen, we made some additions with Draymond. Femi's a young kid in there right now. Arden's had a lot of experience. It's not just the outside pressure; it's the big guys inside too. And we have two pretty big guys in there that can push the pocket and create some pressure in there in other ways too. So, there's going to be urgency to improve every part of this roster, though.
That was Titans GM Mike Borgonzi yesterday talking about the Titans pass rush group after Lorenzo Carter surprisingly retired. Now, Lorenzo Carter, he wasn't great. He had 0 sacks last season. He retires with 21 and a half career sacks over 7 seasons. But here is the list of edge rushers on the Titans roster right now. Arden Key, Draymond Jones, Femi Oladejo, Jalen Harrell, Ali Gay, Titus Leo, and Desmond Evans. 7 edge rushers on the roster who combined for a grand total, Derek Mason, of 11 and a half sacks last season.
Mm-hmm.
Arden Key had 6.5. Draymond Jones had 4. Ali Gay had 1. So the 7 edge rushers, and I know that Femi Oladejo, for example, is a rookie, but the 7 edge rushers on the Titans roster right now combined for 11 and a half sacks last season. That's no good. So it leads to this question. Should the Titans pursue an established pass rusher before the start of the season? And Derek, there were 2 names as I did some research that stood out to me. Zadarius Smith and Matt Judon. Both players are 32 years old. Zadarius Smith split last season between the Cleveland Browns and Detroit Lions. Smith had, in 16 starts, 17 games, he had 9 sacks and 60 quarterback pressures. He's averaged 8.4 sacks per 17 games in his NFL career. Matt Judon, he played last season with the Atlanta Falcons, started 15 games, appeared in 17 games, 5.5 sacks, 29 quarterback pressures. He is more of a declining asset at this stage of his career than Zadarius Smith. But at his peak, Matt Judon had 28 sacks across the 2021 and 2022 seasons with the New England Patriots. He has a career average of 9.3 sacks per 17 games. So when you look at the relative inexperience among the edge rushers on the Titans roster, again, 11 and a half combined sacks last season for the 7 edge rushers on the Titans roster. Should they pursue an established pass rusher before the start of the season?
Wow, that's an interesting question, because even though they don't have many people on their roster with a lot of sacks up underneath their belt, they look at this unit as a young, impressive, and talented unit that they hope. And I get it. You're at a position where you can't hope. You got to know these things got to pan out. But you hope that these young individuals will give you the production that you need. But I'm going to say this. They're going to have to, I think, go get another veteran guy on the outside because of injuries. And as you start to get through camp, you're going to have some guys beat up. You're going to have some guys maybe even out for the beginning of the season. That's just the way the camp goes. You hope you don't have any, but it happens. And at that position, you're going to be able to rotate. You need to be able to rotate individuals and still have and not drop too much from production. So when I take Jeffrey Simmons out or some of these other guys and the other guys are rolling in, we're not losing production like that. So eventually I think they're going to make a move, but I think it will be later in camp. Judon and Zadarius, both of those guys have been highly productive. And I think Judon, both are sort of familiar with the defense that Denard Wilson runs, because both of them, I think both of them played in Baltimore, if I'm not mistaken.
Matt Judon started his career
in Baltimore
with the Baltimore Ravens, played there from 2016 through 2020 before joining the Patriots.
Yeah, and Zadarius Smith was there as well.
Zadarius Smith also started his career with the Baltimore Ravens from 2015 through 2018.
So they know the mentality, the thought process of this defense. They understand it. Because I'm sure it's not too far off schematically anyway, and wording from what they, had to learn in Baltimore. So those two guys would be good fits, if I'm just looking at it from the outside looking at, those guys seem to be good fits because they know the system. But do you bring them in now, or do you wait and let some of these younger guys get the reps that they need and so they can compete? And if it's not working out, you can always bring in, if indeed they're not picked up already, you can always bring in a Zadarius Smith or Matthew Judon.
They're roughly the same age. Well, they are 32, and I believe they're both about to turn 33. They'll be 33 early in the season, if I recall their birthdays correctly. Judon, again, he is more of a diminishing asset. 15 starts, 17 games, just 5.5 sacks and 29 quarterback pressures last season with the Falcons, who, by the way, were one of 2 teams in the NFL with fewer sacks than the Tennessee Titans last season. The Titans finished the season with 32 sacks, the Falcons with 31, the New England Patriots with 28. Zadarius Smith, I'm honestly surprised that he is still out there. Remember, he was traded from Cleveland to Detroit after the Lions lost Aiden Hutchinson, and he played well for the Lions. I think he was a salary cap casualty. Sorry, Jared, but I just didn't think, if I recall correctly, the Lions couldn't make the salary figures work for Zadarius Smith. But again, 9 sacks, 60 quarterback pressures with the Browns and the Lions last season. So intrigued by that name. And the question is, Derek, as you said, are the Titans proactive? Do the Titans decide to go out and sign one of these players knowing that they need the help? Or do they, with their number 1 waiver claim status, wait until a pass rusher gets cut and brings that pass rusher in? That's the question.
Man, they can, but I mean, that's the chance you're taking, because you'll get first dibs at the guy, but I think because of your record, when a guy gets cut, release, or that may just be during the season. But I mean, you can take that chance and hope and pray that one of these guys on the team gets cut, maybe because of salary cap reasons. But you allow your guys to compete, and if you see you need somebody else to come in, then again, you're going to have to make that decision, whether it be going to get a guy that's in free agency now, or waiting till a guy get caught, or possibly even trading for a guy.
So Von Miller just joined the Washington Commanders. He signed a 1-year deal that will pay him $6.1 million, with the opportunity to make up to $10.5 million through incentives. Would you be willing to give a similar contract to one of those players?
Say that again.
Von Miller's contract with the Commanders, 1-year deal, pays him $6.1 million. He can make up to $10.5 million through incentives.
Oh, of course I get that to him.
I don't know if either of those players would take that.
Oh, why would I'm trying to figure out, why wouldn't they take it? Because both of these guys are.
Judon is coming off of a rough season for the Falcons. I think you could get Judon for something
for
like
less.
that. Probably for less.
I think Zadarius may. I think if you can maybe give him 7, and up to 12, he can earn up to 12. But I think you got to assess your team more. And if you feel that you're not getting what you need in the next week and a half, 2 weeks, then you still have enough time to, make a call or sign a guy and let him get some days in before the season starts to get him acclimated to what you're running. So, I mean, either way, to me, they're going to have to go out and get another guy, another veteran guy.
And I hear what Borgonzi is saying, that
Mhm.
it's not just about the guys on
Yeah.
the outside. It's about Jeffrey Simmons and Devontae
Yeah.
Sweat. But you need someone to get after the passer. Harold Landry took 9 sacks with him to New England.
Yeah.
So you were one of the worst teams in the NFL at sacking the quarterback. You're a leading sacker. You basically cut, right? Well, they
Yeah.
did cut him. He's gone. So yeah, I don't know where the sacks are coming from, in this defensive front.
I think what they're going to try to do is try to manufacture them somehow, some way. You know, I guess one of the most impressive things I saw on the practice field today, and I hope that it equals to him having a great season, is Jeffrey Simmons. He looks like a DN now. He's
Lost
slim.
about
Yeah,
20 pounds.
he's slim. And my first thought was, can he hold up in the inside? Being that small. But then I was reminded, hey, listen, they're looking to move him. They may move him around a little bit. He's not just going to play that nose tackle. And I think that's what Jeffrey Simmons, that's why he sort of recalibrated his body, because he wants to have the ability to not only play inside, hopefully he still kept that strength, but the ability with the quickness now, a little bit more quickness to play outside. Because listen, that's where your sacks are coming from, man. I think he understands now, and Jeffrey said this, I think, early in the year. Finally got a big fella in the middle with him. Well, what does that do? That frees him up. He drops some weight. Now he can play across the board. Now he can play rush in. Now he can be made stand up linebacker on the outside, and I can play because I still have the strength. I still can play in the middle. So seeing him slim down and knowing, what they need, it may just shake out as, okay, we like what we see now that Jeffrey can play across the board. We got some younger guys. They're doing well. We don't have to go out and get somebody else.
615-737-1025. Should the Titans pursue an established pass rusher? Because, yikes, the edge rushers they have, not so good. 615-737-1025. Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow will join us coming up next. We'll get into the Titans and more with Hutton. And here is a reminder to tune in for player interviews and the latest updates on Titans training camp as the team prepares for the 2025 season. Coverage of Titans training camp is presented by Macero and 12 South and Parman Energy Group. D. Mace Finnegan and Donic 1025, 1063 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Great start for me there. And we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Of course, as we mentioned at the top of the show, we are mourning the loss of Willie's wife, Erin, who lost her battle with cancer yesterday. We will take your thoughts, any memories you have of Erin Donic on our phone and text lines at 615-737-1025. We bring in Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton in Withrow. Hello, Hutton. How are you?
I'm doing okay. My heart breaks for Willie and for Evie and Mahoney. Erin was a beautiful person inside and out. And she had the gift of if you talked to her for 5 minutes, she made you feel like you knew her for 5 years. And I thought, just thinking back on some of the memories I had with her and Willie from my early time when I was interning with Titans Radio in 2005, 2006, they were just making the move over to Citadel and she opened up her house. I'll never forget, for whatever reason, Willie, we all call him Willie.
Yes.
But it's Will.
Yes.
It's Will. And just her energy, her passion for stars. I'll think of you think of Erin when you think of Willie, and you think of Willie whenever I'm talking about Erin. So thoughts and prayers to the family. And again, I'm just thinking about Willie today.
Absolutely. So with day one of practice in the books at Titans training camp, Hutton, I know you weren't out there today, but
right
outside of Cam Ward, what is your number one storyline of Titans training camp?
Well, it's the youth. It's the rookies. I mean, look, this is going to be a gradual build. Was what they're doing now. It's the opposite of last year, where all the hype was about last year going into the season. Adam, they couldn't even hide it if they wanted to yesterday. They were very honest in the presser when Big Joe asked about the Super Bowl capabilities of this team. So, of course, we all know the answer, but it's how you handle the answer, right? And they're looking ahead. But can you jumpstart a bit of that? Can CJ Stroud from 2 years ago be in the works for the Titans at quarterback? And if so, that means some young receivers are starting to blend in with this roster. They're not waiting around to contribute, which has been an anchor for many Titans rookies in the past. It's like they draft the player and then we all wait to see if that player is going to make it or not, but it takes a year or two. But I want to see some of the rookies jump up and grab the brass ring, so to speak. If they do that, they can maybe be a year ahead of where they probably should be on this timetable.
I want to ask you a question that Derek and I are going to discuss after we get off here with you. Chad Brinker had a quote yesterday buried in a longer answer about not a lot of stars on the roster, hopeful that some players could emerge as stars. That you just touched on it there as well. Obviously, Cam Ward is a player that the Titans hope has a chance to become a star. When you look at the younger players on this roster, how many do you think have a realistic chance of becoming stars in the NFL?
Okay, when you say let me give you my definition for the Titans roster right now.
Sure.
And you tell me if I'm on the right track or if you're just you're talking like top 100 player. To me, how many players right now do the Titans have where fans want to buy their jersey?
That's one way to look at it.
Right now, what, 2 or 3?
Cam Ward,
Ridley and
Jeffrey
Simmons?
Simmons. Yeah, Calvin Ridley. Yeah,
Maybe Ridley. I don't even know if I don't see many Ridley jerseys. You get my point.
I
Like,
think
there's
you
not-
could. I think you can. I think you can count the number on one hand. Whatever the number is, I think you can count it on
Yeah.
one hand.
And part of that is drafting. No offense to offensive linemen, drafting a lot of offensive linemen recently.
Yes.
But yeah, the stars have not developed. And so you're going to have to ask the question: how many do I foresee developing?
Sure. Like
Mhm.
we all hope, if you are a Titans fan, that Cam Ward becomes a star. But
Sure.
we're looking at some of the under 25 players on this roster. Are you and I understand that, for example, it's hard for an offensive lineman to become a star.
Sure.
But Peter Skoronski, J.C. Latham, Tavondre Sweat, when you look at those players, what we've seen from them so far in their NFL careers, sans Ward, of course, because he hasn't started his regular season NFL career, do you see any of those other under 25 players with the makings of becoming a star at some point?
I mean, old Dejo's got the pedigree.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's got the look about it. You know, the traits of the NFL draft. I mean, Mace, you've been around when a pass rusher with traits, albeit a bigger and better, I would say, forecast for Javon in his rookie year. But Mace, think about what Curse meant to the defense,
Mm-hmm.
and just having that one pass rusher. You know, that group had more, but I'm saying that right now, 5 sacks is going to lead this team. I mean, that's the projection right now. Can they have someone that just catches fire at pass rush? To me, Adam, that's really it. Because I mean, Tavondre Sweat can be. I don't know. He's not going to get sacks. He got a lot of tackles for loss in college, but 7 or 8 sacks for his career in college. But he played a lot for Texas. I'm not trying to hate on the guy, but that's how you become the star in the defensive backfield. He needs to be able to help others become that player, and that could certainly benefit a rookie on the edge.
I want to ask you about the NFLPA leadership, let's call it scandal, the NFLPA leadership scandal.
Yeah.
And here's what I find fascinating about this story from a journalism standpoint. When the news of this scandal first broke from Pablo Torre, I feel like it barely registered at all in the media landscape. It was a bombshell story. It felt like it didn't really get any attention. Then there was follow-up reporting from ESPN and other places leading to the resignation of Lloyd Howell as the lead of the NFLPA. But now that we are here in this story, what do you make of it? What do you think the fallout is going to be? The lasting impact of all of this unrest in the NFLPA?
I don't think it's a coincidence that it wasn't covered that much until the NFLPA executive director was at the forefront of all this. There's a lot of media partners with the National Football League, a lot. And a lot of the focus has been on the NFLPA because this guy's charging things to strip clubs and doing all the. I mean, but you got to remember, Goodell's also involved in this. The NFL was 50% of this, this whole saga, and they're the ones that have been accused of the collusion, which is very difficult to prove. But you've got so much detail here. With what Pablo Torre has reported and other outlets, but not to the scope of what you're talking about, Adam. And I think that there's another layer to it where, yet again, this is another example of the NFLPA showing it's the weakest of the player associations across the board in the big sports. And the NFL owners, once again, pointing and deflecting the interest level of a story to the other side, which is typical, but it doesn't always have to be this way. but somehow it finds its way to the players normally.
Yeah, it does, and it's unfortunate in this situation because you fight for so long, the NFLPA,
Yeah.
and to show people that we are not the weakest, union, and
Right,
then something
right.
like this happens, and it goes back to, well, this didn't happen with our unions, and we're able to. This whole collusion stuff didn't happen in our union. It's just a whole bunch of stuff that is going on with the NFLPA that shouldn't be going on, and it's putting a black eye. The NFL's looking at it and laughing, I'm sure, because now the collusion stuff, it's nobody's talking about that. They're
Nope.
talking about, the NFLPA and their mishaps financially. That's what they're talking about. They're not talking about the collusion. So the NFL owners are like, good. Thank you for allowing that to happen, or thank you for going to a strip club and using their dime, because no longer are we talking about the NFL and collusion. But
you're right.
Let me get back to the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, let's do it.
I went out there today, Hut, and Adam asked me how it was, and I just felt that it was, and a team that's coming off of 2 back-to-back losing seasons.
Yeah.
Someone shouldn't walk away from the first day of practice saying, it wasn't no energy. It just felt slow. Even the quarterback said it's mid.
Cam Ward said it was quote unquote mid.
Yeah,
the first day of practice.
And our callers, they called in and texted in and said, well, whose fault is that? I think it starts from the top to the bottom.
Before you answer, can I give you my initial reaction?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. This is not Brian Callahan's got to be better than this.
Mm-hmm.
The energy. All right, go ahead. I don't know if you're going there or not.
Yeah. That's where I was going. Like,
this
fault?
is not good for year 2 first practice here.
Exactly. Like, whose fault is it? Because our listeners want to know. Titans fans want to know when they hear your quarterback saying it was mid, and then other people, putting it out there saying, the practice was sort of lackluster in a sense. When you come off a season that you came off of, that this team come off of, the first day of practice should never be described as, from your starting quarterback, rookie quarterback, as mid, and other people
rookie
as
quarterback in his first training camp practice.
Exactly.
And if he doesn't bring the energy, no one's going to.
Exactly. So that, to me, it falls on Brian Callahan. What do you think about it?
I mean, I thought he was approaching the offseason in a different way. That's what he said, right? He's going to try to change up some of the vibes or whatever he's doing. There's got to be better carryover from whatever they said that was a success in OTAs and mini camps to what you're describing. Albeit I wasn't there, Mace, but you would know energy level at a practice, and whenever you're just kind of, you're just kind of like lethargic to it. It sounds like.
Yeah, it just seemed to be no energy out there, and
it feels. You know what? The energy that to me, that's reflective. It's kind of they practice the way we saw Borgonzi and Brinker answer the question yesterday about Super Bowl.
Yeah, you're right about that.
If I were to compare the two, it sounds kind of mid.
Yeah, well, what battles are you looking at now that now the camp has started, and there are some certain spots where, the whole roster is up for battle. But what spots are you looking at particular?
Just by sheer numbers, we have to discuss receiver. Because I'm interested to see if the veteran depth on the back end of this takes over more so than the youth card. But the numbers alone with what they've done in the draft, they're going to keep several just regardless of what they do based on where they're drafted. At least that's my impression of it. And then beyond that, Mace, interior defensive line on the back end. Of course, they're going to need help at corner, and the battle I really want to see is L'Jarius Sneed going to get over his knee and battle through the pain. We'll see. I'll believe it when I see it at this point.
Hutton, I do want to ask you about the quote unquote controversy that WNBA players drummed up this past weekend with the "Pay Us What You Owe Us" shirts they wore at the All-Star game, and unsurprisingly, The reaction has been all over the place.
Well,
where do you stand on this?
so they should be paid more, but they're going about it the wrong way. The optics of it. Here's the thing: you can tell that they have not been through a CBA negotiation before. You can tell that there on one side there are NBA owners who are going to run laps around them whenever it comes time to negotiate this thing. They're just now doing it in person, I believe, last week. It's up in October 31st, I believe, is whenever we probably have a labor stoppage for the league. I mean, I think that's coming. But as far as leverage goes, I mean, it's all with the owners right now. I mean, it's not like they can pay them less. I mean, they're getting like $70,000 base for a league that's been losing money. Yes, but keep in mind, the NBA can allocate however much or however little they want to that league. So it's in their best interest, honestly, to continue to have that league lose money, because that gives them more leverage when it comes time for negotiations in the CBA. They don't want the league to look too good, because then they owe the players too much. And right now, it's we know it's Caitlin Clark and others, but collectively, they have not embraced as a group of players. They have not embraced their top asset in Caitlin Clark, which has brought over a brand new audience to the league that they should embrace, but for whatever reason have not fully done so. And on the other hand, they're trying to figure out, okay, pay us what you owe us. What are you owed? I want to know what they feel like they should be getting, because that wasn't on the t-shirt. So I can get behind their messaging there as long as I kind of understand where they're going. But I feel like it's been very foggy and messy with how they've as a collective group, as I'm going to say how they've handled a lot of this, and we're just getting started. Let's put it that way.
Is it as simple as following the NBA model and splitting basketball-related income right down the middle? Because it's been reported, depending on the outlet, that the current split between the WNBA owners and players is 75-25 or 90-10, depending on where
it goes up and down.
Right.
Yeah, or can. Yeah.
Right.
I see what you're saying.
So is it as simple as just saying, hey, we'll split it right down the middle with you?
Well, I don't know if it'll be right down the middle yet, but see that it can be, because that keep in mind they have the new TV agreement, just like the NBA. The NBA negotiated this. It's worth over $2 billion. But if they hit certain markers between now and I believe 2 years from now, they can. There's a clause in this where the WNBA can go back to the negotiating table with broadcasters and regroup on the finances of that TV deal and the money that the NBA has allocated to them, which is $2.2 billion of the 70 some odd $billion contract that they negotiated. So with that in mind, how do they get there, and how do they negotiate and maybe map out a way to get something now, but also hit some of those markers and hit some of those bonus numbers, so to speak, that where the entire league benefits and maybe uses it as a trampoline for 2 years from now, it really skyrockets, which is what we're seeing right now. And let's see, the NFL and the NBA with all the new TV money coming in. That's what the WNBA needs. Is they need to see the not distant future, but a couple seasons from now. And right now, I think they're looking towards next year. A lot of the players, Adam, negotiated with their contracts. They will be free. A lot of them will be free agents after this season on purpose. So, they're not looking much further than this season whenever they're talking about pay us what you owe us, because they're all going to be free agents.
Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow joining us on D. Mace, Vingan, and Donic, as he does every week. Hutton, great stuff as always, my friend. We'll catch up next week.
Okay, that sounds great, guys. Thank you.
Jonathan Hutton on the program, 615-737-1025. Coming up next, we are going to get into a discussion that we previewed there with Hutton about the Titans' lack of star power and what they can do about it. 615-737-1025. Before we get there, this September, Tim McGraw will be performing at Trintix's Rock the Cradle in Nashville, a meaningful event supporting newborns and moms at Ascension St. Thomas Midtown. Get your tickets now at rockthecradlenashville.org.
What will be the things that you see that make you think we have gotten better, if that's what you're looking for?
Yeah, I think the off-season program, I was really impressed with what Brian did and how competitive it was within the rules. And just seeing the growth in some of the players and how certain players really have bought in, or really not just bought in, use a phrase that Mike uses a lot, is that they believe in what we're doing, which is really important. And I'm just, I'm excited about what we have going on right now, knowing where we are as a football program. But there's, I get it. There's not a lot of star power on this roster right now. I do think there are some stars that will come through at some point. We're excited about the draft class. Obviously you got Cam Ward, and he's got a lot of work to do and a long road ahead of him too. But I mean, I think you all have seen the talent. It's pretty impressive. And you asked the question earlier about him, and just the way he's gaining the respect of his teammates is something that I've seen from the peripheral of. It's been impressive, but we also know this is a performance-based business, so he's got to go out and perform, and he knows that. And when he does, it's just going to elevate the entire program. So there's just a lot of improvement that we got to make all across the board.
That was Chad Brinker yesterday. A long answer, but there was a section of that answer that I want to focus on here. He talked about the lack of star power on the Titans roster. But he did say, quote, "I do think there are some stars that will come through at some point." So that's what we are going to attempt to do right now, Derek Mason. Because as we know, the Titans do not have any stars on rookie contracts right now. Well, we hope it's Cam Ward, but we can't say that for sure. So this is what we're going to do, and we want your feedback as well. At 615-737-1025, our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Which young Titans players have a realistic chance of becoming stars in the NFL? Now, your definition of star may vary, as we discussed with Jonathan Hutton. But Derek, there are 5 players I want to focus on. 5. When I thought about doing this exercise yesterday, here are the 5 players that came to mind. Of course, Cam Ward. He's 23 years old. Peter Skoronski, who will turn 24 next week, I believe a week from tomorrow. J.C. Latham, who's 22 years old. Tavondre Sweat, who's 24 years old. And Jarvis Brownlee, who is 24 years old. So let's focus on those 5 players. And if I'm missing somebody obvious, you let me know at 615-737-1025. So there are a couple of ways we can go about this, Derek. We can look at each player individually. We can rank these players.
Did you add Roger McCreary to that?
I do not have Roger McCreary.
Is he, how old is Roger McCreary? Are you saying 24 and under? Yeah, Roger McCreary.
25 and under.
He's 25.
Okay,
he won't be 26 until, well, he'll be 20.
He turns 26 in February.
Next year. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he will be 25 throughout the season. So we can throw Roger McCreary on this list as well. So we will add Roger McCreary. I was looking at the age cutoff for me was 25 years old. So we have Cam Ward, 23, Peter Skoronski, 24 next week, J.C. Latham, 22, Tavondre Sweat, 24, Jarvis Brownlee, 24, and Roger McCreary, 25. I think part of the reason I maybe didn't include McCreary is that he already has 3 seasons under his belt versus the rest. But let's start there. How many of those players right now, Derek, are you confident in saying that they have a realistic chance of becoming a star in the NFL?
Wow. A star.
The fact that you're thinking so hard about this does not bode well.
It doesn't. Okay. I'm thinking of the offensive lineman, but
well, it's hard. It's hard to be
it's
hard to be a quote unquote star as an offensive lineman. Like let's when I was thinking about star guards.
So that takes JC off of it and Peter Skoronski.
Well, I still think that you can be a star. It's easier to be a star as a quarterback, as a wide receiver, as a running back, as a pass rusher.
Okay, let's say star meaning Pro Bowl caliber.
Okay, we can do that. So, for example, when I think of star guards
Mhm.
or star guards, when I think of star guards, I think of Quentin Nelson with the Indianapolis Colts. Quentin Nelson was a first-team All-Pro
Mhm.
each of his first 3 seasons in the NFL. So Peter Skoronski cannot attain that because he wasn't a first-team All-Pro in his first few seasons in the NFL. But I'm looking at Quentin Nelson's career. He has made it to the Pro. He's been in the NFL for 7 years.
Mhm.
He's made it to the Pro Bowl every year of his career. He has been an All-Pro 5 times, a first-team All-Pro 3 times, a second-team All-Pro 2 times.
Okay.
He was also third in Offensive Rookie of the Year voting in 2018. So when I think of a star guard, I think of someone like Quentin Nelson.
Well, if that's the criteria, none of these guys are. And, they don't have the credentials. It will take some extra years to sort of build up, credentials like that. But it's hard. The unfortunate part, I could see big Tavondre Sweat being a star.
I could as well.
I could see him being a star. Outside of that, there's not. I think some guys that turn into good players, but when you're talking about star players at that level, at that age, the only guy I'm looking at really is Tavondre Sweat. Now you can add Traylon Burks in there; he's 25, but come on, now, it's just like okay or whatever. But it's unfortunate that outside of Tavondre Sweat, up until this point, there's nobody that has shown star quality outside of Tavondre Sweat.
So NFL.com did this exercise this month. They put together their all under 25 team across the NFL. And Tavondre Sweat was among the choices for interior defensive linemen.
Mm-hmm.
And NFL.com, the author wrote, quote, on this all under 25 squad, Sweat is the run stopping salt to Jalen Carter's pass rushing pepper. He's a massive human who is surprisingly athletic, a gargantuan gap plugger made in the mold of a past era of interior defenders. While he didn't match his excellent teammate Jeffrey Simmons in stops, he still did quite a job in this category, logging 39 while keeping pace with more established upper-tier defensive tackles in stop percentage, 5.8%, better than, Poona Ford's 5.4 and Vita Vea's 5.1. For those who appreciate raw power on the interior, Sweat is a joy to watch. If he can build on what he accomplished as a rookie, he'll become a household name. So Cam Ward, and we'll focus on Cam Ward specifically in the next segment, but outside of Cam Ward, of those players I listed, Skoronski, Latham, Sweat, Brownlee, and McCreary, I would agree with you that I think that Tavondre Sweat has the best chance of becoming a star at his position.
Now, the guy that I put a close second is J.C. Latham.
Okay.
I put him a close second because I think he's going to really settle in at that right tackle spot. And I think he's going to be one of the better. When I mean better, I think he's going to be a top 5 right tackle in this league. So he is that next guy, that next tier, a player that I think, has the potential to be a star. But that's only 2.
So I want to focus on one player specifically when it comes to Tavondre Sweat. And that is a player who was mentioned in that blurb on NFL.com, Vita Vea. Vita Vea, if I recall correctly, was the 9th best interior defensive lineman on Jeremy Fowler's top 10 list earlier this month. Vita Vea has been in the NFL for 7 years. He's made it to 2 Pro Bowls. He has averaged 5.5 sacks per 17 games. This past season had a career high 7 sacks. I don't think Vita Vea is too high of a bar to clear for Tavondre Sweat. If Tavondre Sweat can become a regular Pro Bowler who averages 5.5 sacks per season, I don't think that is I don't think that is out of the realm of possibility for Tavondre Sweat.
No, I don't think it is either. I think again, he has that ability, and not to say, and I don't want to make something clear here, because the last thing I want to do is say these guys don't have the ability to. These other guys outside of Tavondre Sweat. I think I was talking about Brownlee today. I think he has to have he has to show improvement, but he has what it takes to be a Pro Bowl player in this league. I believe Jarvis Brownlee does. I think some other young guys that you mentioned on this list has an opportunity to be solid players, highly contributed starters on this team. But the fact remains, they don't have enough young stars, guys that are at the top of their position. We saw the list. The NFL came out with the list of execs that ESPN did that talked about the tops at their position. And outside of two players, no one else was named.
Well, Jeffrey Simmons was the only player who was actually in the
and
top 10.
Tavondre Sweat was an honorable mention.
I think Peter
He was
Skoronsky.
12.
I think Peter Skoronsky was an honorable mention, but the only player who actually landed in the top 10 at their position was Jeffrey Simmons.
Yeah, so I mean, these young guys, because again, I don't want to say, especially the younger ones that have just come to the team, the rookie guys. They have all these guys that we're talking about. They have they can never say I didn't have an opportunity to earn a spot or become a household name, because this roster is not set with household names, and they're begging and pleading for somebody to step up and say, I'm that guy. They're begging and pleading. So a guy on this roster should never say, oh, we didn't have the opportunity. Your whole roster is an opportunity, especially this team.
As Willie said about the receivers,
yeah,
but it can apply to many other positions. It's the land of opportunity.
Exactly.
When it comes to finding a place in the NFL. 615-737-1025. Which young Titans players, I emphasize the word young, which young Titans players have a realistic chance of becoming a star in the NFL? I've listed Cam Ward, Peter Skoronsky, J.C. Latham, Tavondre Sweat, Jarvis Brownlee, Roger McCreary. If there's somebody else, let us know. 615-737-1025. We will take your reaction. Coming up next, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. D. Mace Vingan and Donic 1025, 1063 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you, talking Titan stars or lack thereof. Chad Brinker said yesterday, I do think there are some stars that will come through at some point, such as, and that's what we're trying to figure out right now. 615-737-1025. Which young Titans players have a realistic chance of becoming stars? Craig on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHunting.com, says, I think Alec Iomanner could be a big star for this team in the next couple of years. Could probably make a Pro Bowl, but I don't know that he will ever become a superstar like Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson. He doesn't have to be a superstar like Jamar Chase or Justin
great.
Jefferson. That would be fantastic. But what do you think about Craig's suggestion about Alec Iomanner?
Again, these rookies, they have an opportunity. They're going to have an opportunity just like everybody else to come in and prove that they could play in this league and play at a high level. I think the table is set for them to do well. New quarterback, new offensive coordinator. He wants to be a little bit more innovative. He's going to use them in a way, you hope, that gets them open. So I think they have a chance to make some headwinds here, but who's to say? These guys can come out and show us one thing in practice, and then again in the game and show us another thing. We've seen that before. So because this position is so wide open, this wide receiver behind Calvin Ridley, I think every guy has an opportunity to make themselves known, especially DK and Iomanner. What is it? Alec Iomanner?
Alec Iomanner.
Alec Iomanner.
Alec, E-L-I-C.
Yeah,
Alec.
Alec Iomanner. He and DK are going to have an opportunity to make their presence known or be felt within this roster. So they have just as good of a chance to make the roster as anybody else in this receiving room.
So let's talk about Cam Ward for a moment, because look, the Titans absolutely need Cam Ward to become a star. And when you look at the rookie quarterbacks from a year ago, Titans fans are hoping and praying and pleading that Cam Ward will become Jaden Daniels.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not even looking that high. So I'm looking at rookie quarterbacks from last season. And what would be a promising sign for the future? Drake May played for a bad team last season. A bad team that the Titans beat, but a bad team nonetheless. As a starter, he had a 3-9 record. He did not start at the beginning of the season. He eventually became the starter. And his numbers are not sparkling. He threw for a little bit more than 2,200 yards. He threw for 15 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. But he passed the eye test. He also had, by the way, 421 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. So he has that element to his game as well. But as I said, he passed the eye test. Remember that play he made at the end of the game against the Titans to force overtime. So although Drake May did not put up huge numbers in his rookie season, I think Patriots fans and Patriots brass will tell you he looked the part. He didn't win games, but he looked the part. So would Titans fans accept a Drake May-like rookie season from Cam Ward? If Cam Ward plays like Drake May did last season, and keep in mind, Drake May did not win a lot of games last season. The Patriots didn't win a lot of games last season. But if Cam Ward has a Drake May-like rookie season, can Titans fans feel confident that, hey, this season may have stunk, but we've got our guy?
I think you can't help but think that. Listen, he completed 66% of his passes, almost 67% of his passes. He didn't average much yards. He only threw for 2,000 yards, a little bit over 2,000 yards. He played 13 games. He was a 15-10 guy last year, 15 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. But what you saw here, I think, spoke volumes. The gutsiness, the play, the moxie, the standing in the huddle, standing in the pocket. getting outside the pocket, making plays with his feet. And it wasn't that, because Will Levis showed some of the same things when he was and when we last saw him. He showed some of the same things, especially the first year. But I think if you watch Drake May throughout the whole season, he got better. That was the thing. He developed and got better. I think a lot of those things he was doing was early on when he was playing, early on in the season last year when he became a starter. But I think after that, he started to develop as a quarterback, and it wasn't necessarily because of him that they were losing games. So if I'm getting Drake May type of play, obviously it'll be a little bit better because we believe, he will play all 16 games as opposed to Drake May's 13. But yeah, I think people should be optimistic, cautiously encouraged by what they see if it turns out to be Drake May. Maybe not a winning season, but you see the development. And that's what Brinkert and Borgazzi talked about yesterday when the question was asked of this roster, of this team, and what you want to see. Development. We want to see these guys develop. He tried to get away from, answering the question based upon the record. He didn't want to say, well, you got to win this many games or this many games. He said, no, we got to know each and every day that our guys are developing, that they're getting better each and every game. And sometimes that does equate to wins, but not all the time,
Josh on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, suggests Gunnar Helm. That would be good too. We know that the Titans haven't had a lot of star power at tight end.
Mm-hmm.
An impressive final season for Gunnar Helm at Texas, 60 receptions, nearly 800 yards and 7 touchdowns. If I were Chigakonkwo, I would be hearing those footsteps of Gunnar Helm coming up from behind me, because Chigakonkwo has been inconsistent, to say the least, in his NFL career. It would be huge for Gunnar Helm to break out as a star player. I'm not expecting a Brock Bowers type season from Gunnar Helm or anything like that, but that is another good choice. So as I look at this list, Cam Ward, Peter Skoronski, J.C. Latham, Tavondre Sweat, Jarvis Brownlee, and Roger McCreary. That's the list that I have. Obviously, Cam Ward is at the top. He was the number 1 overall pick in the draft. He plays quarterback, which a lot of quarterbacks become stars. Well, not a lot of them, but quarterbacks, that's a position that is ready-made to become a star.
Yes.
So Cam Ward is at the top. I would have Tavondre Sweat underneath Ward. If I'm doing a power rankings of the young under 25 or 25 and under players on the Titans who have a chance of becoming stars in the NFL, I would have Cam Ward number 1. I would have Tavondre Sweat number 2. I would probably go with Latham number 3, Skoronski 4, Brownlee 5, McCreary 6. I put McCreary at the bottom because he is 25. This is his age 25 season. He's been in the league for a few years. He's a solid player, but I just because there's a larger sample, I'm not sure if McCreary's going to get there. I think he can be a solid player. He has been a solid player, but just because he's the oldest, I'm going to put him at the bottom. So I would have Ward, Sweat, Latham, Skoronski, Brownlee, McCreary. If my power rankings of 25 and under Titans players that have a chance to become a star.
Man, I got Ward, Sweat. I am going to go with Brownlee.
You've been
I
high
got JC and then Brownlee.
You've been
and
high
then
on
Skoronski.
Jarvis Brownlee.
Yeah, I think he has that mentality, and that's the mentality that you need at the cornerback position. It's you got to forget things. You have to have it just has to. You can't be thinking about what happened in the last play. You got to forget about it. You got to move on. Not only does he have that, he has the toughness to play the position. He has the footwork to play it. He has the speed to play it. His problem is he's too aggressive, and he has to find that fine line between being aggressive but not to a point where it's hurting your team. He's shown that he has the talent. He was a rookie last year. He got beat up on. That's what rookie's supposed to do. Even if you're a first round pick, you're going to get beat up on. So he got beat up on last year. All right. But in the process, I think he was developing and he learned from those mistakes. I think this year, hopefully he comes in as a better player. That's why I'm so high on him. I just see the makeup in him.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. I just see the makeup. In it.
And
That's why I think
depending on
so high on him.
depending on Legarius Sneed's availability,
Uh-huh.
Jarvis Brownlee is going to get a lot of reps. So trial by fire.
Yes.
We saw it last season. We could see more of it this season. 615-737-1025. We will take your thoughts. Which young Titans players have a realistic chance of becoming stars in the NFL? You let us know. 615-737-1025. 1025 The Game and Souls for Souls have teamed up for a back-to-school fundraiser, Souls for the 615, to provide new shoes for kids experiencing homelessness in Nashville. Help a child in Middle Tennessee step into the new school year with confidence by donating $20 for a new pair of athletic shoes. For more information and to donate, visit theGameNashville.com/shoes. Souls for the 615 is sponsored by Macero and 12 South. Go check them out for handcrafted cocktails, bold plates, great happy hour, and elevated hospitality. D. Mace Finnegan and Donic 1025, 1063 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service, and we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Derek Mason and Adam Vingan here with you. Willie Donic, of course, out today. He shared the devastating, heartbreaking news this morning that his wife, Erin, passed yesterday after a fight with cancer. We are all mourning the loss of Erin Donic here at the station, and our thoughts are with Willie and his children, Evie and Mahoney, in this incredibly difficult time. And if you have any memories of Erin that you would like to share, let us know. 615-737-1025. We hope to have Willie back soon. As I've said a couple of times, he found solace during the past year being in here with us, talking sports with all of you. So it would mean a lot to him, I'm sure, to hear your thoughts, any memories you have about Erin. Quickly, before we get to our next topic, Derek, Sean texted in on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, asking you if you think Jarvis Brownlee has the ceiling of Cortland Finnegan.
You know what? I think that I think they're two different players. And this is no slight to Cortland. I think Cortland was a hell of a player. He got the most out of, being a late round pick and people saying he was undersized. He got the most out of his talent. And he ended up being one of the best Titan, cornerbacks in this, 20-something, 30-something year history, I believe. But I do believe Brownlee may have that. He may be just a tad bit better in some areas. I think the upside is a little bit better. I think the upside is a little bit higher. The ceiling is a little bit higher for Brownlee than I think it was. And now, granted, I wasn't here with Cortland Finnegan, and I didn't see him every day. But I know what his career ended up being. It was a really good career. No slight to him on that at all. He had a hell of a career here. But I think the ceiling is a little bit higher, for Brownlee Jr. Now, will he like Cortland Finnegan, get the most out of his talent and reach it? I don't know. Cortland was able to. I'm not saying I don't know. I can't tell you if Brownlee will be able to do that, but I can tell you that I think his ceiling is a little bit higher than Cortland's was. But again, Cortland, he maximized, every bit of talent he had in him, and he just, like Brownlee, he has that one thing in him that you just can't teach. He had dog in him, meaning Cortland, and I think that's what Brownlee has in him as well. But I think the talent, the ceiling is a little bit higher.
So I want to ask you, Derek, about Brian Callahan, because, well, we're probably getting off to a bad start having this conversation, because the first thing that Derek said when he came in here today talking about his takeaways from Titans training camp day one was there was no energy. And we heard it from other people who were out there. Cam Ward said himself that today's practice was quote unquote mid, which, as you said earlier, Derek, is a reflection of the head coach. He is not alone in that, but it is part of the head coach's responsibility to set the tone, especially on the first day of practice at training camp. So I asked you, Derek, to watch Brian Callahan as well as the players on the field, because I knew you were going to be at practice today. So how would you evaluate Brian Callahan's coaching style? Because we spent a lot of time this offseason, and by we, I mean Jared, but a lot of people did this. A lot of people spent a lot of time this offseason discussing the team building stuff that Callahan was doing, and whether it was Pop Warner-esque, and you defended Brian Callahan because players like to compete. But as you evaluate Brian Callahan, his demeanor on the field, the presence on the field, what stands out to you?
I think with just like prior coaches here in Tennessee, more recently, Mike Vrabel. I think that first year is a learning year for you. And sometimes you may do a lot better than what you expected, and sometimes you may do a lot worse than what you expected. But I think that second year is the year that you come back and you say, okay, now I know the things that I didn't know. Now I can become a better coach because now I know those things, and now I'm moving forward. And now I know what team I have and what team that I want to have going into next season. I know just about everybody's temperament around here, because a lot of these players were here last year within this offense and defense. So I think what I see from Brian Callahan, because today you couldn't really see much. He wasn't yelling and screaming and all that other stuff. No, I think he was doing more so just observing than anything. He tried to be on both sides of the ball throughout the day. But I think the one thing that I have noticed is that he understands where he went wrong, and he's trying to do those things to correct them. Whereas some people may think they're childish or high schoolish, he looks at them as developing and bringing together a unit. He's trying to learn from some of the things he didn't do last season. So to me, I see a guy like his team, he wants to develop as a head coach.
I think he mentioned something this morning about the accountability aspect of coaching, and that's something he wants to work on from year 1 to year 2. And I heard Robbie and Jake talk about this morning. Why is everybody is a broad term, but why is everybody so convinced that Brian Callahan can't coach in the NFL? I know that last season was awful, and that, again, reflects on the head coach. Brian Callahan's record as an NFL head coach is 3-14. He, quote unquote, led his team to the worst record in the NFL and the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. But of course, he was dealt a bad hand. He had an awful roster. He had a quarterback who could not get out of his own way. And I've said this many times, and this is not necessarily to defend Brian Callahan. I am just trying to provide both sides, I guess you could say. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I am convinced that Will Levis is uncoachable. Not that you can't teach him things. I just think that there are certain things that Brian Callahan tried to hammer home to Will Levis that Will Levis was incapable of grasping. And I can only imagine Brian Callahan in his quiet moments just beating his head against the wall, having to coach Will Levis. So, I do put some of that on Brian Callahan, the whole Will Levis fiasco. I don't put all of it on Brian Callahan.
Listen, you got to understand, because, and everybody does. I don't know why all of a sudden, we think that, or some people think that Brian Callahan is a bad coach. He's horrible. You need to get another coach. Was his first year an ideal year? No. But I want you to understand this. When Vrabel first came in, Vrabel had the fortunes of having Kevin Byard, Derrick Henry. Corey Davis was he had just drafted him that year, I believe. But let me see. Who else did they have? An up-and-coming Jonnu Smith.
Which year was this?
This was 2018, his first year. Was 18 his first year or 17?
Mike Vrabel?
18, yeah. He had inherited a playoff winning team.
Yes, 2018.
Wesley Woodyard on offense, Kevin Byard, Jayon Brown, Adoree Jackson was playing okay. Logan Ryan was playing, Malcolm Butler, Jarrell Casey, Rashawn Evans, Harold Landry. They had a Rakpo. They had veteran players that were playing good football. They had a playoff appearance the year prior. So he came in a little bit different, and he ended up 9-7, I think, that season. Had he come in with this roster, it wouldn't have been a 9-7 season. It wouldn't have been. Because this roster, as much as we've complained about, this is a bad roster. Okay? Brian Callahan has inherited this roster, and yet last year it was in the dumps. And he's trying to make sure through his coaching style that it doesn't happen again. He's trying to implement whatever he needs to implement that he thinks is going to send a jolt through his team. These guys are going to develop and they're going to have a good season. It may not indicate it in record necessarily, but in development. We can look at this team next year as the season going and say, you know what? This team is looking better. They look good.
Are there elements of Callahan's coaching style, his coaching personality, that remind you of any of the coaches that you had in your career, both at the collegiate and professional levels?
Nah, not offhand. I can't because
and you played for, among others, Nick Saban.
He definitely is not like
no,
Nick Saban.
He's definitely not. But how many coaches are like
Exactly.
Nick Saban? You played for Brian Billick.
Yes.
You played for John Harbaugh.
Mhm.
Of course, you played for Jeff Fisher.
Mhm.
So
you know what? Which is a big problem. I'm gonna say this, and I think this was a big problem of his last year, and why he has to sort of change. And people brought this up. Hell, Big Joe would bring it up a lot. It's just like he's too nice in a sense. Like that first year was too. I don't want to ruffle any feathers around here. You the head coach, ruffle every feather you possibly can. You the man that is running this ship. You can ruffle feathers if you need to get things in the way you want them. But it was like he didn't want to. Every coach that I had. Nick Saban, he didn't give a damn about ruffling your feathers. As a matter of fact, he wanted to. That's one. Jeff Fisher was the same way. He didn't care about that. He loved his players, but you knew that he meant business. John Harbaugh, he was the same. He didn't care about ruffling feathers. He wanted to make sure everybody bought in. The one guy he was like is Brian Billick. And you know why he was like Brian? Brian Billick was into his 15th year by then. 15, somewhere around there. It wasn't, I didn't meet the Brian Billick of the first year. I met Brian Billick after Super Bowl and after being in the NFL for 15 years.
He was only
10,
your coach
years.
for what, 1 year, 2 years?
No, he was my coach for 2 or 3?
I'll look it up.
Yeah. But anyway, he was Brian Billick later on, which he shouldn't have been. If you could kind of understand, because Brian Billick had gotten to a point where he was just like a player's coach at 3 years.
He was your coach for 3 seasons.
He was like a player's coach. Like it was just something about how he went about his business.
But he was at the tail end of his time.
Yes, he was at the tail end of his time.
Versus Brian Callahan, who's a fresh face.
Absolutely. And there was no way. Now I'm going to bring up this incident, and I will bring it up every time because this right here, it does show like it's like that proverbial line. It's like you cross, like you about to get to it. Now it's gonna come to a head. Either there's gonna be a decision made, and the decision that is made will alter the future moving forward. When he did not kick Jeffrey Simmons out of practice,
yeah, that's a big one.
He let and listen. I'm not even making this Jeffrey Simmons' fault. This is not about a Jeffrey Simmons, but I'm saying when he didn't kick Jeffrey Simmons out of practice that day, it changed everything for the year. Everything moving forward, it changed it for the year. Because what were we talking about after that? He didn't have control of his team. He's too nice. He doesn't want to ruffle any feathers. Jeffrey can basically say and do what he wants. Nobody wants to, anger Big Jeff. That's what the narrative was. He's too nice of a coach. I get being nice. I understand that. But this is yours. You're coming in as if it's somebody else's and you just here for the time being. That's how Rand Carthon came in that first year. It was his job, but he kind of set back as if it was everybody else's job. And I'm just going to kind of, feel my way through here. Well, feeling your way through here got you out of here. Because there were a lot of things said about you that probably wasn't true. But because you kind of set back, was like, I'm going to do the right thing. I ain't going to ruffle no feathers. Well, it got you fired ultimately. Brian Callahan, if you don't change it, it's going to get you fired.
But it sort of reminds me, and I'm a young parent. You have 2 children.
Uh-huh.
A lot of you can relate to this. At some point, you may have been more relaxed as a parent, and you let your child do something So eventually you decide,
Mhm.
I don't want my child to do that anymore, as I smack myself in the face with my microphone. And when you say, let's use my son for an example. If I didn't have an issue with Arlo doing something, and then all of a sudden I said, Arlo, you can't do that. Arlo, an older version of Arlo, because right now he's only about to be 4 years old. An older version of Arlo might say, I'm not going to listen to dad. I mean, he thinks he's a tough guy now. So, like, you know what I mean? Like,
No, I get it.
like Brian Callahan, as to use your term, didn't want to ruffle feathers.
Mhm.
So let's say Brian Callahan says, this year I'm going to hold my players more accountable. I am going to be sterner with my players. And then something happens where Brian Callahan tries to be stern. This is my moment. There's a fight in practice. I can step up. I can be more stern. I can kick them out of practice. You don't think Jeffrey Simmons is going to be like, yeah, sure, coach, whatever. Like I'm wondering if they'll see through him.
It all depends. I think if indeed that does happen again with Jeff or anybody, you got to kick him out. You got to, regardless of what they may think or what we as media people may think or radio talk show hosts may think. You got to kick him out. You have to, because if you don't, what is everybody gonna say? Here we go again. He ain't changed. He's still letting them do whatever they want to do. So you're going to have to kick him out. I don't think Jeffrey would say, oh, coach, forget you. He may think it, but he's going to, if coach kick him out of practice, he's going to leave. That's just the way it is. But he's going to have to start, and one or two things are going to happen. And it's how you do it necessarily, is either he's going to have to stand up and be assertive and be that head coach, like, this is my way, this is the way we're doing it. Yeah, I can give you some, but if you do anything to hurt this team, you're not bigger than anybody else. So if I got to throw you out or do this or do that, I am going to do it. Because now you got another group of young guys coming in, and if they see another episode like the last year's group saw, then what are you teaching those guys? What are you saying to those guys? They're going to say, well, eventually I'll be able to do what Jeffrey's. I may not be able to do it now, but eventually I will be able to do what Jeffrey did. So he's going to have to, regardless of what the situation is, he's going to have to, be that alpha amongst a lot of other alphas.
Yes.
But he has to show everybody he is like, this is my train. I'm driving it. Y'all may have alpha personalities, but I'm the conductor here.
But he's not out there looking like Mike Vrabel.
Yeah, but it's about how Nick Saban didn't look like Mike Vrabel, but everybody was scared of Saban. I think people would be scared of Saban before they were scared of Mike Vrabel.
True.
So it's about how you come at a player. If there's something, something that you see need to be corrected, you correct it right then and there. It's not about, oh, let me grab your hand and let me stroke your ego a little bit and then tell you what you shouldn't be doing. No, John Harbaugh didn't care about that. Jeff Fisher didn't care about that. Damn sure Nick Saban didn't care about that. I'm telling you what I need you to do. You do it. If you can't do it, you're not going to be on this team, and I'm gonna get somebody else to do it. So which way you want to have it? We can have fun. We're gonna have a lot of fun out here. But if you ain't doing it the way I want you to do it, or you're doing things that are hurting the team, then you got to go.
615-737-1025. We will take your thoughts on Brian Callahan. Coming up next, a quarterback in a different market said something really interesting today, and I want to get Derek's thoughts on it coming up next. 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Happy Wednesday, everyone. This is Derek Mason, and you heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a resolution to shed some extra pounds, only to face disappointment. But at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his staff, his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that's why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize their program specific to you and you only. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
I would say we're still continuing to do that, but it's not just with me. It's with a lot of the guys. I'm not the only one that heard that. You guys aren't the only people that heard that. You know, a lot of people that follow football, that follow the Miami Dolphins, that follow Tyreek, that are fans of his. Everyone has seen that. So when you say something like that, you don't just come back from that with, "Hey, my bad." You got to work that relationship up. You got to build everything up again, and yeah, it's still a work in progress, not just for me, but for everybody. But like I said, he's working on himself. He's working on the things that he says he wants to get better with and do better on. So that's the first step to me, and so I commend him for doing that.
That was Tua Tagovailoa at Dolphins training camp answering a question about Tyreek Hill. And we will get to that. But first, I want to go to Hair Metal Henry on our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. He has a story about Aaron Donic that he wants to share. Henry, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Well, to say July 22nd, 2025 sucked is an understatement. I lose the music of my 80s childhood, and then we lose somebody from our community who impacted a lot of lives in the community. I only got to meet Aaron one time for about 30 minutes. Unfortunately, it was on a day where we were saying goodbye to someone important to Willie, Derek, and myself. Now, a little perspective, my wife is adopted, and here recently she found out she had a brother and a sister. Funny enough, I went to high school with both of them. But prior to that, she had two brother figures in her life. One was our friend Jeff LeBar. He played for the band Cinderella. And the other one was good old Frank Wycheck. Well, make that three. As Derek knows, when you get Frank, you get Teddy as a package deal, right, Derek? So, but anyway, so after the funeral, we were all at the Sheraton doing visitation with everybody. Aaron comes down and sits at our table and introduces herself, and she's talking to my wife. And within 15 minutes, man, we don't know that we're mourning the loss of a friend anymore. We feel like we're at Holiday World having a great time. She definitely had a gift of pulling people out of the funk and into the light. So, you know, as Derek says every day, be loved and loved on your people. Let everybody know how you feel about them and let them know that you love them. Perfect example. Every summer, Teddy and Marie would come down for his birthday and we would have Check Fest. My buddy Jeff was there. We've got some other musician friends who were there, bands that Frankie loved back in the day.
Mhm.
But one year we had one Derek Mason show up, and I think Chase probably hooked that up for us. And Derek, I don't know if he ever told you, brother, but he sure told us, regardless of whoever showed up to that thing, famous or not, to have a friend, a team, and a colleague, for you to show up. Sorry, man, I get emotional about Frankie. But for you to show up, man, a bit more to him than anybody else. And I just wanted you to know that.
Well, thank you. I
Thanks, guys.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Thank you. And we will continue to take your thoughts, your memories of Aaron Donic on our text line, our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. A lot of wonderful notes in our text line. We'll make sure to share them with Willie and his family. So as we came back from break, I should say, we heard that clip from Tua Tagovailoa at Dolphins training camp. Now, if you recall, Tyreek Hill, according to ESPN, removed himself from Miami's regular season finale against the New York Jets before suggesting to reporters after the game that he would like to play football elsewhere. I believe his words were, "I'm out." Dolphins GM Chris Greer said Hill never requested a trade, and Hill apologized for and walked back his comments in February. But then you hear that clip from Tua, and I will tell you, Derek Mason, I found that to be incredibly refreshing. I liked the quarterback saying, you can't just say, hey, my bad, and we move on. You have to repair that relationship, and not just with me, but the entire team. So I actually commend Tua Tagovailoa for the way he answered that question, because I think most quarterbacks would have said, you know, it's water under the bridge. We talked it out. It's fine. I love Tyreek, yada, yada, yada. I like the way that Tua handled that.
Well, I think, Tua is showing that, he is the leader of this team. And when you say something like that, and we know, at least I understand, when you're in games like that and the season isn't going well, and maybe you're not having a good season, and maybe you didn't make the playoffs or got beaten in the playoffs in a fashion where it was just so disappointing. Sometimes you may say some things that, is truly out of frustration. And you're looking at it as, man, well, maybe this is our last go around. But I don't think you should ever do it in that fashion, because listen, you're too good of a player that they're not going to trade you. They're not. And so now you got to deal with the fact that basically you just said to your team, I quit. I'm out of here. I want to leave. All because you have a bad season. The team had one bad season. And a lot of it was because of injuries. They were injured across the board. They went through 5 quarterbacks, it seemed like. I mean, they went to one quarterback. Was it the Titans game where he couldn't even throw the ball down the field?
I've said this as we've discussed L'Jarius Sneed.
Uh-huh.
I knew that the Titans were perhaps in a bit of trouble when Sneed was burnt by Tyreek Hill on multiple occasions in that game. And if it had been Tua throwing Hill the ball and not Tyler Huntley,
they would have been touchdowns.
They would have been touchdowns. Absolutely. I'm looking to see how many quarterbacks. 4 quarterbacks appeared in games for the Miami Dolphins last season. Tua played and started 11. Tyler Huntley played and started 5. Skylar Thompson appeared in 3 and started 1. And Tim Boyle appeared in 2 games for the Miami Dolphins last season.
Yeah, so Tua is right, man. Like, listen, we love you. We want you on this team, but we got some talking to do. You just can't walk back in without us having a conversation. And he's right about that, because you can't just quote unquote quit on us and then say, oh, I'm good, I'm fine. Nope. No, we got to talk about this, man. We got to talk about it. And since somebody asked me the question, I'm gonna let you know we got to talk about this. And I'm sure everything would be fine. I mean, they'll get things straight. But Tua's right. Like that's one of those deals where you see and you think that's what that's what Brian Callahan should have did. That was your prime opportunity to do what Tua Tagovailoa did. Stand up to a all pro player and say, nah, bruh, it doesn't work like that. We love you, but it doesn't work like that. Brian Callahan, you had a chance to stand up to an all pro defensive lineman. Nah, bro, we don't work. This is not how we work. We love you, but you got to go. You chose not to do it. Tua chose to do it one way. Brian Callahan chose to do it another. Hopefully, Brian Callahan can overcome that choice that he made a year ago in regards to Jeffrey Simmons and not being more demanding and assertive at that point.
Wes on our text line talking about Brian Callahan says, everyone acts like Callahan is the best thing since sliced bread because of Joe Burrow. Burrow was a good quarterback before he got to the Bengals. And we've seen a lot of this. I always go back to the news release that the Titans were hiring Brian Callahan to replace Mike Vrabel. And there were multiple paragraphs about all of the quarterbacks that Brian Callahan worked with or around during his NFL coaching career. Peyton Manning, Matthew Stafford, Derek Carr, etc. Joe Burrow, of course. And when we've brought that up, I've always said, I know that the Titans, they're trying to build up their new head coach. Look at all of these great quarterbacks he worked with. But I think there were a lot of people who saw that and said, they think that Brian Callahan had anything to do with the success of Matthew Stafford or Derek Carr or Joe Burrow. But he was hired to be a quarterback guru, quarterback whisperer, whatever term you want to use. And I do think that the way that the Titans unveiled him by hyping up those credentials, which I understand, it sort of set Callahan back, I think, with some fans once Will Levis came in here and stunk up the joint. So, I don't hold that against Brian Callahan, but I will be fascinated to see the strides he takes from year one to year two. Here's another example. What was one of the first viral moments of last season after Will Levis did what he did against the Chicago Bears? I believe it was the game against the New York Jets. Brian Callahan, or the Packers. They were all bad. But Brian Callahan was caught on camera as Will Levis was coming off the field after another dumb turnover. And you did not need an expert lip reader to make out what Brian Callahan was saying to Will Levis. What the F are you doing? Except he didn't say F. He said the actual word. And I believe the next day, Callahan sort of walked it back. Like, I wish that the cameras hadn't caught me talking like that to Will Levis. Why not? Like, that's what Will Levis deserved in that moment. He deserved to be yelled at. He deserved to be asked that question because of the stupid thing that Will Levis did. So I am fascinated to see how much more accountable Brian Callahan holds his players this season. Let's see if he did indeed grow from year to year, because the last thing that you want, Derek Mason, as a coach is a doormat. And I do think that at times last season, Brian Callahan gave off the impression that he was a doormat.
And that's what you don't want that to be the narrative. You don't want that to be what's said about you. And I'm sure there are some people outside of that building, based upon what happened last year in certain situations, that do feel that way. Heck, you got a whole, a facet of the fan base that don't think you're a good coach, think you are too lenient or whatnot. So, I mean, it's unfortunate, but I think he has an opportunity to, sort of change the narrative of who he is as a head coach. And a lot of it will come with winning, because we saw it with Vrabel. The minute Vrabel started losing, people didn't like his attitude anymore. People didn't like how he addressed the media anymore. Oh, he's this. But when he was winning, it was like, okay. So, I mean, you just got to change the winning narrative. you don't necessarily have to change who you are and what you are as a person. You just start winning ball games, and that nice Brian Callahan, people gonna love it.
I do want to read one text message from Kevin on the loss of Aaron Donic. Kevin writes, quote, "Never personally met Willie, but I've been listening to him since the day he started with George Plaster back whenever that was, WSMV before the Zone. I can't even remember. But I feel like I've known him and his family personally. I he talks about, he said, I love Willie like he's a family member. And man, that just crushed my soul to hear about his wife through the years. His family has been like our family, and I'm just shocked and devastated. Had no idea they were even going through that. Please tell Willie we love him. We're praying for him and his family. May God be with them all." And that's one thing about this profession is we talk to you, the three of us talk to you 15 hours a week, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. And you get to know us even if we've never met. I've told stories about my son and my wife. Derek has told countless stories about his family. Willie has told countless stories about his family. And you get to know us, even though we're not really talking to you. We are talking to you, but we're not having a conversation. You know what I mean? So I absolutely understand how you all feel like family to us too. Those of you who call in, text in every day, we recognize you. We know what you like to talk about. So that was some really kind words there, Kevin. Thank you for sharing. Sunny on our text line says, "My heart and thoughts go out to Willie, of course, but also to his kids. I lost my dad at 14, and now I know how tough it is to lose a parent as a child." So we will continue to take your thoughts, your memories on Aaron Donic, who unfortunately left us earlier this week at the age of 54. We love Willie Donic. On behalf of our 1025 The Game family, we send our deepest condolences to Willie and his children, Aaron's family, her countless friends, and they'll be with us. They'll be in our thoughts always. Coming up next, Jared Stillman. Do we have a treat for Jared Stillman? We will get to that next. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063 The Game.
Jared, you're just a hater. You can't just go crap one out of your ass. Lit their panties on fire. What a freaking loser. My wee-wee gets erect. Is meth only $20? Surely drugs are more expensive than that, right? Hold on, I'm going to do a Google search right here. Jared Stillman, more bullcrap. Oh, Jared, you're a hater, which I couldn't give a rat's ass about. I can't sleep, Jared. I can't do it. Oh, my God, this team is so bad. With all due respect, I know more than you. I don't do meth. He's just a big oaf. The media, they try to be our friends.
Oh, what more can
my
you say?
goodness.
What more can you say about our good friend Jared Stillman?
Oh,
Some
man.
random Twitter account popped up last night with that supercut of things that Jared has said.
Oh,
And
Lord.
Jared, I have to tell you, my friend,
That was awesome.
when I watched this for the first time at my kitchen table, I started laughing so hard I was crying, and my wife and son were concerned for my well-being. I was laughing so hard.
So that is the Jared Stillman out of context Twitter handle.
Yes.
I think I know who it is.
Okay.
I think I know. I'll just put it to you like this. You guys know this person. I don't know if it's him or not. You guys know him. Adam probably better than Derek. I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to make any accusations or anything like that. Don't want to get in any trouble. But the Jared Stillman out of context Twitter handle, and we will see what that has in the future. I don't even remember saying all those things. I mean, I definitely said them. There's accompanying video. I don't even remember saying all those things, but we shall see if it continues the chronicle of the Jared Stillman out of context.
I mean, it really boils you down to the very essence. That 45-second clip is Jared Stillman in a nutshell. But quickly, before we get on to the Titans, I would love for you to share your thoughts, your memories of Erin Donic as we mourn her loss today.
Yeah, I'll probably have more to say about this later for sure. I will say that yesterday I texted Willie when I found out the news, and I just said everybody that ever met Erin Donic absolutely loved Erin Donic. And the truth is that Willie and I started with the station over 10 years ago, and I'd say that Willie and I didn't have the best relationship. I always liked Willie, but I'm pretty sure he didn't like me. And what really I think truly brought us closer was, just kind of my relationship with Erin, like getting to know Erin over the years. And now I have great respect for Willie, and I feel as if that feeling is mutual. But I think a lot of that has to do with Erin, and that was kind of the person she was. She really, really, really was one of the most positive people that I've ever met, one of the most proactive at making things better, people that I've ever met in my entire life. When somebody passes away, I think we always reminisce on how unfair it is. But in the case of Erin, this one probably strikes a serious chord with me, given how positive of a person she was, how well she took care of herself. And at 54 years old, it's way too young. And I read the article that I thought was very well written in the Tennessean, eulogizing Erin. And if you haven't read it, I encourage everybody to go read it. But I think the thing that it really highlighted was how the light that was Erin Donic will continue to shine because of just the thousands of people that she impacted. But I mean, it crushed me just when I found out that she was sick. I had heard that, last year. It crushed me then when I found out that her treatments had, as is often the case with people that end up passing away from cancer, her treatments had not gone in the right direction. It crushed me. And then when I heard the news that she passed away, it crushed me. And I'm crushed for Willie and Mahoney and Evie. But it's really, really, if you knew Erin Donic, you really know how heartbreaking it was today.
Amen. So, Jared, I can only imagine how you feel to know that Cam Ward described the first day of Titans training camp practice as quote unquote mid. When you hear Cam Ward say that, considering how bad this team was a year ago and quite frankly, how bad this team has been for the past couple of years, how does that make you feel?
And I thought I would see you out there.
At practice?
Stillman, yeah.
No, Jared
I am
sent
still
Connor.
dealing with an upper respiratory infection.
Jared
you
sent
still have
Connor
it, huh?
to
Okay.
Well,
review
I don't. I
practice
mean, I
for
think
him.
I'm towards the end of it, but
Uh-huh.
this one, and again, you guys told me that when you get kids, this is going to happen.
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
going to get worse. I mean, this one just put me square on my rear end. So I don't think that standing out there in the 90-degree heat would have been a very good idea.
Nah, probably not.
So I didn't see the practice, so I can't. I'll put it to you like this: the last 2 years at training camp, 23 and 24, have been utter dominations by the defense, to the point that it's almost like you walk out of training camp and you think, man, this defense is going to be really, really good this year. I mean, I remember Christian Fulton 2 years ago saying, I've never seen a defense dominate like this before. And Kevin Byard said, we think we're going to be the best defense in the league. And the reality was the offense was just bad. So you never really know in training camp. Is it that your offense is bad, or is your defense good? Or is your offense good and your defense is bad? There's no real way to know, unless it's like 2 years ago when it was Arden Key just busting Andre Dillard and Mike Vrabel's up there saying, well, Arden Key's really good. We're all like, is Arden Key really good? Like, I'm not so sure about that. So that doesn't bother me, as far as how it was on the first day of practice. But if this is another year where the defense that I know is not a dominant defense, if this defense dominates throughout training camp, then that is a real red flag for where this offense is going to end up being.
I had a problem with it, Jared, and I did go out there, but I had a problem with it because, Brian Callahan talked about what he did in the offseason, try to bring this team together, to try to, cause this competitive nature throughout the locker room. And it's the first day of camp. I know you don't have on pads. I get that. But it's the first day of camp. And you walk out of that building and that field, and you step on that field, and it's like there's no energy. That's all on Brian Callahan. And to me, you just can't do that when your team have had back-to-back-to-back losing seasons. You can't come into a training camp where your head is on the chopping blocks and your team come out and it seems like they're flat, and your quarterback, your rookie quarterback, albeit, says practice was mid. You can't have that.
Is that how you felt?
That's how it wasn't just me. It wasn't just me.
There was no energy. You
Yes.
felt that it
That's
was
the first thing that Derek said when we discussed it.
And it wasn't just me.
Tehran's report from practice said the same thing. Not enough juice on the field.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
And it surprised me because, walking out to practice should be one of those deals, especially when all the things that are being said about your team. You should want, the first time we see you out of practice should be the best practice ever, as far as really energy. And it just wasn't there. You can blame it on not having them pads, or you can blame it on getting acclimated to the weather. You can use all those excuses you want to. But the fact remained that your team didn't show or didn't present the energy that I think everybody was looking for.
That's a red flag.
And when I said it, what did I say, Adam? I said, I don't want to be too hyperbolic about this.
But I think you were concerned that you were alone in thinking
Yes,
that. But then
exactly.
I told you what TD said. Then I read you what Cam
PK?
Ward said. So you were not
Didn't
alone.
PK say something? Didn't
I,
he tweet out something?
Kaharski tweeted out the quote from Cam Ward
Yes.
saying today's practice was mid.
Yeah.
Yes. So you were concerned that you were
the
alone.
Quote from Cam Ward. Like, I watched Cam Ward's press conference. I heard the quote where he was like, we were just mid today. I just thought he was just kind of saying that. I didn't think it was like
I didn't hear it. I only
like
read
a
it.
blanket kind of, we were awful or anything like that. Simmons got up there and talked about how the defense did their thing today. But again, with Simmons, as Adam would put it, sometimes I feel like he might be an unreliable narrator. So I will say this. Very few of us, and it's not the era with which Derek played in, so it is different. But very few of us can, I think, really look at a football practice and come away with like, hey, the energy wasn't good enough. The compete level wasn't good enough. The, intensity wasn't good enough. Derek's one of them. So when Derek's there saying, hey, I was out there on the practice field and I didn't like the energy at practice, that's concerning to me as an innocent bystander who wasn't even there today. I keep hearing about the new and improved Brian Callahan, and it all sounds great. My thing is, when it comes to the new and improved Brian Callahan, I need to see it. Like, I need to see him hold people accountable. I don't need him just to tell me that he's going to hold people accountable. I need to see him hold people accountable. And so if we've got this new and improved backwards hat Brian Callahan, and all of a sudden Derek Mason goes out there, Tennessee Sports Hall of Famer, number 2 all-time all-purpose yards, one of the best receivers of the 2000s, goes out to practice and says there wasn't any intensity out there, I am concerned by it.
Yeah, and that's just and again, I was thinking, am I alone in this?
You were not.
And maybe people, and again, like you said, Jared, I look at it differently because I know what it really looks like when you step out of that locker room and the energy is there. It just didn't feel like the first day of camp. It felt like a mini camp. It almost felt like a mini camp. It didn't feel like the first day of camp. And I don't know how to explain that to people, but it didn't feel like ball has started. Like, man, like we're excited. The energy is just flowing.
Well, it's funny because what you just said is the opposite of what Simmons said at the podium. Simmons was like, you could feel it today. Football is back.
Well, I mean, he has a different definition of what football is back mean, or a different view of how football looks on the first day. But the way I look at it, what I was used to, it didn't look like that.
Quickly,
I'll take your definition over his.
Quickly, one texter on our text line. How did I miss Jared saying my wee gets erect? Well, stay tuned for Stillman and Company coming up next, because you never know what Jared will say. We send our love to the entire Donic family.
Amen.
On the loss of Aaron. They are in our thoughts and prayers. We will be back at 11 tomorrow.
Beloved, loving your people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful Wednesday. Aaron, we love you. We're going to miss you, the whole 102 The Game family. Peace.